Hey there, and welcome back to Frontline Conversations. Today's guest is Mr. Dakxin Chharra. He's a filmmaker and a theatre director from Gujarat. But more than that, he's someone who grew up in a community that the British quite literally stamped as criminal and then just walked away from. Instead of accepting that label, Dakshin picked up stories. He started Budhan Theatres, trained hundreds of young actors, made over 100 films, and used art to talk about things people usually want to look away from: power, prejudice, the politics of identity, and who gets pushed to the edge and who is remembered or forgotten. He's in Chennai right now for a national conference on nomadic and denotified communities. Dakshin, really glad that you're here. So let's start with you, right? Growing up Chara, what did that actually look like on a day-to-day basis, if I had to ask you? When did you first realize that society already had a label for you before you could even open your mouth?
I mean, being Chhara in Ahmedabad, where I live, that's definitely not a privilege, uh, because that is a historically stigmatized community. And when we were a kid, we didn't know about the historical stigma. And we really surprised that why we were always allowed to sit. I mean, we were last backbencher. And why we are always allowed to sit the last bench, not at the first bench. But slowly, when we realized the history of the nomadic and denotified tribes, then we came to know about that why the rest of the communities or the societies in Gujarat or in Ahmedabad, they keep distance from us. They keep think that we are criminals, we are thieves, robbers, and we will rob them. So being Chhara for myself as a Chhara community member, I'm so proud. But for the, out of my community, for the rest of the society, they're still habitual to look at us as that we are, born criminals.
All right, so somewhere along the way for you, theater and filmmaking became your way of pushing back. Was there ever a moment or a person that specifically made you think, okay, this isn't just art for me, this is survival and this is my way of resistance?
Yeah, I don't know why, but since my childhood, I always wanted to be filmmaker, and there was no grant, what's called. There was no teacher, no tutor, no guru to teach us, because being Chhara in Ahmedabad, finding the guru in the culture industry or creative industry, there was next to impossible, and so I learned filmmaking and theater, you know, like I'm autodidact. I learn my own by watching films, by making films, by cracking, the fundas of editing and shooting and everything. So, so I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but when in 1998, before 1998 also, we used to do theater, do a community theater for community development or raise the community issues in our own dialect. That is called Bhantu, Bhantu. And Bhantu is a dialect. It does not have a script. And we used to do a theater, street theater, in the community, raising the education issue or women operation issues or alcoholism, this kind of issues. But when Budhan Sabar in West Bengal, when he was brutally killed in the police custody by Inspector Ashok Roy, and the interim judgment of that particular case of Justice Romapal of Kolkata High Court, that appeared in the small magazine, and that magazine traveled from eastern part of India to western part of India in our library where we used to do theater. That time I thought that, I think we should make a play on that, and we should not just use, entertain, or just, we should not give the message to the rest of the society, but we should raise the voice about the DNTs and, that, since so many years, the DNT people are suffering, so many generations. How long we will, keep suffer, and ask to the government a specific question: are we second class citizen? So with this question, we started theater, and my all the theater plays and the filmmaking. That is the last question we always ask: are we are we denotified and nomadic tribes? Are we second class citizen? Why don't you consider as a normal human being? Like you, a normal citizen. Why you consider as a thieves or robbers? Because that is a colonial stigma. Why it is not still wiping out? So that is a question. With this question, we started theater and filmmaking.
Yes. So let's delve a little bit more into that aspect that you spoke about, being labeled and being viewed as second class citizens. Now, you can be brutally honest here. Your professional journey so far, when you enter theater and film spaces, did you ever feel like you were, in a sense, just being tolerated rather than, actually welcomed in the way any other person from, let's say, any other background would have been welcomed? And what kind of resistance did you run into ever, whether that's subtle or like direct and in your face?
Right. Honestly saying, I'm still the. I mean, film industry inherently is a very expensive medium, right? And that is dominant by the 15% of the population of this country who are telling their story to the 85% of the population. I mean, Neeraj Gaiwan recently stated this, and I agree with him. So when we want to tell our narratives through films or through theater, there are no resources. There is no system to tell our narratives, and we have to depend on those 15% creative minds that they will tell our stories. I think, and because of this reason, I also face a lot of hurdles to get funds to make films. Even still, I have a lot of problems actually getting the funds to make films. Yeah, and even funding to do theater. So for theater, what we did, we adopted Grotowskian style of theater, the Polish director, and like he used to call uh, the poor people's theater, the poor theater, and we call it state theater, which we does not require a lot of money. So we manage with the theater, but we could not manage with the films. As I said, it's inherently it's expensive medium, and it's dominated by the upper caste people. These entire resources are dominated by the upper caste people. So I'm still not able to crack this, dominant class dominance to tell my stories. I'm just giving example. For 2-3 years, I have been working on a script that is called Timir Panthi. Timir Panthi is a people of darkness. Sorry, pilgrimage of darkness. That is a little translation. It's a Gujarati novel that is written based on the Chhara's art of thieving, but in a positive context. So it's a very good writer, very senior writer who written this novel, and I always wanted to make a film actually on that. We written script and we narrated the script actually to so many studios in Gujarat, in Bombay. Everyone like, oh, this is a great story, great story. Nobody gave us money, to make the film. And after 6-7 years of the constant efforts, I also tired, and I told to that elderly writer. I told him that I'm sorry because you are already 85-year-old and I'm not able to make this film because nobody's giving us money. You please give the rights to anyone and maybe someone will make the film. So at least your dream will realize, and you will see the film on the screen. And as I actually told him, he started to talk with few other filmmakers. Immediately people bought the, rights of that book, and now people are making it. The same people to whom I narrated. It's a very clear indication that they didn't want to tell my story, but they want to tell my story, to themselves. Yeah. They didn't want to tell story to, myself. So that's a design, that it's very difficult to crack it. And we are trying to solve this problem, that how our creative minds, the creative minds from the marginalized communities in the filmmaking in the theater or any sort of art forms, how they can actually avail the resources to tell their stories, because we cannot depend on this all 15% dominant resources. They will not give us at all ever their resources to tell our stories.
Absolutely. And just delving a little bit more into how you spoke about people choosing to tell your story, but just not through you, I want to speak a little bit more about lived experience. Today everyone speaks about representing the marginalized. You've actually lived the experience of a person from a marginalized group. How different is advocacy, would you say, when it comes from lived experience to instead of, let's say, sympathy or theory? A person who hasn't had your life would only be basing such a film or basing such a story based on theory or based on what they've read or heard, etc. Can people really speak for communities when they've never had to, let's say, walk in their shoes?
Say, for example, what Paranjit, the way he tells the story, or other filmmakers in Tamil, you were saying, uh, uh, the way community people are telling their story, it is impossible for the other community members to tell our story. They cannot actually, you know, वो हमारी कहानी नहीं कह सकते. They cannot be in our shoe. It is impossible because they didn't live that reality. Let me give you example. For example, Article 15, it's a very powerful film. I love that film.
Yes.
And it is written by the Dalit writer, Mr. Solanki, Gaurav Solanki. Brilliantly written. Brilliantly shot film. I think if I would tell that story, then it would be a very different kind of picturization. For example, there is an incident happened in Maharashtra, that 6 members of the same family, they were arrested in a very gruesome murder that happened in Nasik somewhere, in a very remote village. And the 6 member of the same family, they all arrested, and they all got the life imprisonment and death penalty from lower court to high court and to Supreme Court of India. Now from 2003 to 2016 they were in the jail.
Yeah.
And they were on the death row, right? Your kind of any lawyer, he came to know about this case, and he find out that there are very basic loopholes actually in this case. Even these people should not be for a single day in the custody. Forget about the death penalty. So he challenged in the Supreme Court's ruling into the Supreme Court only, and fortunately Supreme Court granted his application, and they started again. I mean, case को उन्होंने वापस से खोला, and they started to listen his arguments, what exactly the problem was. And after 16 years, I mean 2003 to 2016, after so many years, he point out that this is the number 1, 2, 3, 4. They are not the real culprit. Culprits are someone else. They are not culprit. Now this is the real story. I wanted to make the film. I written the script. I written the synopsis. Everything. Netflix wanted to make the series actually on that. Yeah, I narrated, but at some extent, Netflix wanted someone else because I am a community member and I want to tell the story because this is a DNTC story. And they said, no, you are not able to do that because you don't have a national award. Wow. Or you have not made the many films. I mean, I make many films, but not the award-winning films, And they just wanted to assign a filmmaker from Pune, from the Brahmin, background. And they said, this director can, justify the story. I didn't feel that he can justify the story. And then I cancel that deal. So this is the way the, industry look at the filmmakers or the narrators, who are coming from the oppressed communities. that you are not able to do, tell your story, we will be clearly, able to tell better way. We will tell your story.
There's a sense of hijacking your
Yeah.
narrative. Yes. So let's step away from filmmaking for a minute and let's talk a little bit more about Budhan Theatre that you founded and started in the late 90s. That started small and then quietly became a large movement as it stands today. What was the idea in the beginning? And did you ever, during its inception, did you ever imagine that it would train hundreds of actors and, the organization would be able to travel so widely? And also, on a larger scale, what does it mean to you today after so many years?
See, Budhan Theatre was not a thoughtfully started theatre group. I mean, it was the reaction of the community members when Budhan Sabar was brutally killed in the police lockup in 1998, in February 1998, and Dr. Devi and Mahashita Devi, they supposed to have a meeting, first national convention of the nomadic and denotified tribes in Ahmedabad in June 1998. Budhan Sabar was killed in February 1998. So it was a reaction actually from the community. I just wanted to understand what happened actually with the Budhan into the police lockup and in the police in the jail. How brutal he was beaten, because his 35 injuries he had, 35 bone cracks on his body, and horribly. I mean, he was beaten horribly. So I seen such kind of atrocities on my parents, on my community members since ages. So it was not surprising for us that what happened with the Buddha, but it was important to express what happened actually with the Buddha and what can happen possibly with many Buddhan kind of people in the DNT communities. So Budhan Theatre started with the reaction, with the expressions of the community member, what happened with the Budhan Sabar. But eventually, when we started, we performed in 1998 in the first convention of the Denotified and Nomadic tribes. And then we started to perform Budhan plays at many places. And slowly, I found that, okay, when we perform, this mainstream society in the system look at us very differently. I mean, for example, at the moment when I'm speaking with you, for someone, maybe I'm just a criminal or, person from the criminal track. But when I perform, after the performance, when the audience came and shake hand with us, hug us, that was a very different kind of experience for me, because that was happening first time. That some outsiders are coming and shaking hand with us or hugging with us. So we thought that, oh, okay, there is something, a very different power actually in this art form. And we started to continue the theater, and whenever atrocities happen with the with the DNT member, like Pinhari Kale was actually killing, Baramati encounter was Deepak Pawar in Solapur. These people were brutally killed, and we made the play actually on that. We performed hundred of shows on stage, on melas, in the conference rooms, under the tree, in the forest areas, wherever we find the people of their space, we used to perform. And we performed because we could see that some sort of acceptance is coming actually from that side of extreme, which never actually tried to come near, to us. So these both extremes were coming together, and theater was becoming a bridge between DNT communities and the rest of the society and the system, and police and judges and lawyers, and they also started to listen us, because we were telling our story through theater. So they also sit together, for 1 hour or half an hour and watch our play, and they could also understand, oh, okay, this is what actually the denotified tribes are going through. And we slowly found the support system, for this cause. So this was the process of Budhan. I think till now we performed more than 1,000 shows across India. We did 52 plays, and some of the plays like Budhan, we did more than 500, 600 shows, and still we are doing. So it's a fourth generation in the Chhara committee who are doing the same play in a different context, by adding the contemporary issues in Budhan play. But they are, yeah, but that play is there even after 25 years of Budhan's death.
So you also fought a legal battle against Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation back in 2004, and this was after D&T families were repeatedly evicted from their homes. For people watching this who might be thinking, okay, the system is always stacked against us, and that's going to be the case for the future also. What did that particular court victory change on the ground, both emotionally and legally?
So, see, when we started theatre in 1998, in 2003 or 4, I think, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, I mean, they have a task to see entire city as Atra Tatra Sarvatram Sundaram Sundaram Sundaram. Everything should be beautified, all the roads and everything. But in this beautification, they were making people vulnerable and forced to migrate from the city area to somewhere else. So, one of the DNT locality, which was under the then Chief Minister, Mr. Modi, it's a Maninagar area. Maninagar is the political constituency of Narendra Modi. So, our one of the DNT committee used to live there near the railway station, and their houses were also bulldozed. Obviously, the way we were using theatre to raise the community's voices, we also started actually to raise the voice against this bulldozing of the houses. And we made a play called Bulldozer. And we performed that play in many areas of Ahmedabad city. And we got a huge support actually from the civil society. We performed the show in front of the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation's commissioner, at the gate of his home, which is, it's not people, it's not allowed. Performances are not allowed actually in that area. But we went there, we did a hunger strike. And during the hunger strike, we were also performing the play. Then for so many years, from 2004 to 2008 or 9 maybe, we were continuously lobbying and having a dialogue with the corporation, but they were not listening us. Because for them, we are a kide makode, these insects. You just go outside the city. You don't have any rights. You don't have any housing rights. And then we decided to fight the case in the Gujarat High Court. And we won the case in the Gujarat High Court. And AMC challenged us in the Supreme Court. Yeah. In the Supreme Court, I mean, we never had a money. We still don't have money. But fortunately, many lawyers, they came forward to help us. The reason, because we did a lower depths play, Maxim Gorky's lower depths. And that play we actually did into the bulldozed basti. I mean, all the houses were actually bulldozed by the bulldozer. And we did the play in the night actually in that basti. And all the actors, we used the lighting, very different kind of experimental environmental play. So many lawyers came forward to help us even in Delhi. So in Supreme Court, Advocate Meghajani and her colleagues, they help us. We won the case in Supreme Court, I think in 2012, 11 or 12. But even after victory in Supreme Court for their housing rights, 112 families, the government did allowed the pakka houses to these people. No. After, I think in 2017, when there was an election and Vijay Rupani's government, so they implemented Supreme Court's order in 2017, not 2012. So after 5 years of the Supreme Court order, they implemented that. I mean, that's also criminal act, for me, because they should be immediately allotted the, houses, because it's a Supreme Court of India, right? But fortunately, they didn't demolish their houses from 2012 to 2017, and they allotted the houses. And the locality of people who are living in this, they very fondly call their locality as a Budhan Theatre colony in nearby area of Maninagar Basti. So it was a long battle from 2004 to 2017, almost 11 years of time. and then we got small pakka houses for our community members. But I think I must say that in theater, such kind of using the theater and simultaneously fighting the legal battle, I think such incidents happen first time in India, that through theater you can actually get the housing rights, you know, for the people who are not able to even raise their voices. They were begging. They sell the maps on the, on the crossroad. They clean ears, at the bus stand and railway station. So poorer among poor. So they got housing rights because of the theater activity.
You've made over 120 movies and TV projects that mix cinema with activism. When you look at Indian cinema today and where the industry is at right now, do you feel D&D communities are finally being seen, as in they've finally got their moment in the spotlight to whatever degree that may be? Or are they still invisible and just in more polite ways? And if I had to ask you, and I know this is a loaded question, but give it a go anyway, what do you think needs to change?
I didn't see any D&T's reflection in Indian cinema at all. I didn't see that. I mean, I I'm gonna accept, Nagraj Manjule's film, one or two films. I don't see any film that is based on the denotified tribals, narrative like Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim, the community, we call it, Madari snake charmers in Gujarat. So Jai Bhim is, on D&T's narratives. I don't know what they call in Tamil Nadu, but that was our narrative, and it was very similar what Budhan faced in the police custody. Exactly similar kind of torture we saw in the JVM film. Yeah, in the same brutality. So India's nomadic and denotified tribals narratives are completely missing in Indian cinema. No one is talking about these communities. Yeah, they are talking, but they are in a very derogatory term. The way, for example, there was a film called Khel, and there are so many films in which there are dialogues where people use conjure word in a very derogatory term. I am a conjure actually. I call Chhara in Ahmedabad, but in Maharashtra we are conjure. In MP we are conjure and conjure bhat. So they portrayed the film industry, Indian cinema portrayed conjure word as a community of the prostitutes. So yeah, we have a reflection in the Indian cinema, but in this term, not our narratives. Even Indian cinema, even Indian writers, they use our names as abuse word. You know, so in many Punjabi films, you can see, hey, you to Kanjara and Kanjara. So this is the word, but it's a Kanjari, the community. You cannot use that. It's anti-constitutional. But because we are in OBC, other backward community in Maharashtra and in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, the Atrocity Act does not apply actually on us because we are not in scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. If the Kanjar community would fall into the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, they can file the case against them. How we can file the case against actually, filmmaker. So I was referring Khel film, cricketer Ajay Jadeja. Ajay Jadeja acted in that, and Sunil Shetty. So there was a scene in the police station where the Gulshan Gruwer is talking with Sunil Shetty, and he's saying that I mean there was some fighting scene, and in Hindi you saying, "अरे समझाओ अपने दोस्त को, बोले ये तो कंजर है कंजर, दल्ले है दल्ले, ये पुलिस स्टेशन कोर्ट कचहरी किसके लिए बने? इन्हीं लोगों के लिए तो बने." So this was the dialogue for my community, So this is the way Indian cinema, use India's denotified and nomadic tribes names, We are too far actually. Indian cinema, I think when the filmmaker from nomadic and denotified tribes, when they will represent their narrative in Indian cinema, I think then only we can say that, okay, this is our narrative and this is, our film. Until and unless I don't see any, reflection. So to fill this gap of the representation in Indian cinema, a Budhan Theatre is starting actually, it's dreaming. To start the school that is called Nomad School of Filmmaking and Performing Arts. And before we start this school in a formal way, we are conducting filmmaking workshops across India and calling denotified nomadic tribes, Dalit and Manjalas community youth uh, to learn the filmmaking art, basic fundas, in the beginning, and more intense workshop will be taken 2027, and 2028 we will start the formal way of the filmmaking. So in future, that's why I came to Chennai, because I wanted to meet Paranjit, that if he can come and conduct some of the workshop. I'm also talking with Nagaraj Manjule and many other filmmakers from the Madras community who can come and tell their stories, and community youth can actually learn from them, and they can learn the popular format, how to tell the story actually in a popular format, and then we can actually plant them into the creative industry. So maybe in future, after 10-15 years, we can see that in Indian cinema, like Dalits and indigenous communities, the DNT peoples and DNT communities narrative will be there into the Indian cinema. So to fill the gap, I hope we will be able to start, this school in 2028.
And hopefully that day comes sooner rather than later. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you so much again for joining us. Yes. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for more.